Ron Burgundy, the Channel 4 news team. Where's your mommy?
You back off, evening news team.
A few weeks ago, a YouTuber who I'm a fan of, whose channel is called Morgoth's Review, released a friendly critique of Academic Agent, another YouTuber. Morgoth's video was titled The Limitations of Internet Populism. In it, he argued that in his fairly small social sphere, there's a number of characters who he thought of as more or less on his side of things, including Academic Agent, the Distributist, and Keith Woods. He sees all three of these gentlemen as allies against the left and at odds with the modern world as it currently exists. However, he highlights the problem that even among himself and his small troupe, there is a lot of disagreement about what they should exactly offer and seek to build should the current order be overthrown. Morgoth refers to himself as a Little Englander, and as far as I can tell, is a British nationalist in favor of repatriations, closed borders, and economically an older type of UK Labour light sort of economy. The distributist is a Catholic in favor of economic distributism, as advocated by G.K. Chesterton, where markets function but ownership is distributed in such a way as to promote the formation and growth of families. Academic Agent favors a less democratic system of government than what currently exists, one that promotes conservative social values and executes Austrian economics as its economic policy. Keith Woods, on the other hand, appears to be in favor of what he calls third positionism, essentially a type of national socialism with allowances for small private enterprise, I suppose, and promotion of traditional values with essentially zero immigration from the third world. The problem Morgoth points to is quite clear. Aside from merely opposing the political left, what kind of coalition can be formed from such a disparate variety of prescriptions and worldviews? How can anything coherent be built on the backs of all these contradicting desires and beliefs of these four individuals, let alone a mass of people? Instead of trying to answer how this circle could hypothetically be squared, I think it's instructive to look at history for answers. In Spain, prior to their civil war, you had an insurgent leftist force take control of the government democratically, although it is believed that the Popular Front in fact stole the election. The government became increasingly culturally radical, with even some members of the ruling coalition in fact engaging in violence and murder of priests prior to the Spanish Civil War. The Republican government had also put the country in something of a constitutional crisis and behaved in such a way that the opposition legitimately feared for their society and became convinced that the left were no longer concerned about following the rule of law. In response, Francisco Franco and elements of the military crossed the Mediterranean from Morocco and brought the fight to the Republicans. The battle lines were drawn between the Republicans and nationalists. Yet who were these two factions in actuality? Both sides were an ideological ragtag. On the Republican side, you had the leftist Popular Front government working in conjunction with anarchists, communists, syndicalists, and a contingent of foreigners. On the nationalist side, you had General Franco's faction of the military working in conjunction with the Phalangists, who were the Spanish fascists, monarchists, conservatives, and traditionalists. Someone serving in the armed forces of the Spanish state, an American serving in one of the Republic's international brigades, and an anarcho-syndicalist in Barcelona might seem like unlikely bedfellows. And yet, nevertheless, they were allies during the Spanish Civil War. Likewise, on the nationalist side, dissident military generals, traditionalist Catholic monarchists, and fascists had quite different ideas about how they should construct society. However, during the time of the Spanish Civil War, they remained unified despite their differences. Why? The simple reason is that fundamentally both the nationalists and Republicans implicitly recognized Carl Schmitt's friend-enemy distinction. A Spanish Phalangist may have wished to employ a more revolutionary rightist movement, and a monarchist wanted to return to tradition, but both could agree that the left presented a clear danger to any kind of society that they'd be willing to accept. Inversely, the Republican factions realized that any kind of progress in their eyes would be stopped dead in its tracks if more reactionary forces were able to take control. The primary objective of both sides of the Spanish Civil War was the utter defeat of the enemy. Only then, in the wake of victory, could some kind of compromise be made. Either that, or the more dominant player, in this case Generalissimo Franco, would pay lip service to some of his allies, make concessions to others, and ignore or even imprison still more. The end result being that the junior partners faced a new subjugation, but now under a new order that they were at least willing to accept. So must it be with us. Steve Bannon, Alex Jones, Styx Hexenhammer, and Tom Woods may all be very different people with very different ideas. But what unifies them is in fighting the forces of globalism and the progressive left. What is of primary importance at present is defeating the political left. All other priorities, politically speaking, are secondary. Then there will be either a peaceful negotiation with concessions made, or a power struggle among rightist factions about what to build in the wake of victory. I think the issue Morgoth points out of ideological pluralism and the difficulty in forging a unified, coherent vision is perennial. It was ever thus. However, the fractious nature of current Western national culture at large is a real problem, and one he does highlight. America has been composed of at least two very distinct cultures from the very beginning. And with years of mass immigration and the political radicalization and capture of education and cultural institutions, this polarization has now reached a fever pitch. However, despite the myriad worldviews now present in the United States, what you might call the America First contingent and the progressive left in America are themselves rather large, diverse coalitions that continue to hold together and make up very large chunks of the country. A clear majority of the United States falls within one of these two bubbles. They are principally animated by opposition to the other, as was seen in Spain, and should either side achieve crushing victory over the other, there would still remain the messy task of seeing whose vision of the left or whose vision of the American right will rule the day. Ultimately, in politics, the goal isn't to make a better argument, but to seize power, wield it, and prevent your enemies from gaining control. And unfortunately, unlike in Lord of the Rings, the One Ring cannot be unmade, only wielded. In order to make real gains, what needs to animate the right shouldn't be infighting between Christian anarcho-capitalists, conservatives, trad monarchists, and American constitutionalists who want to crack down on immigration. These in-house debates and fights are interesting and do serve some purpose, but they should be kept in-house. What needs to animate the right is a unified hostility and organized action against the left. As it stands, we're so far away from being in any sort of order that any of us would be happy with. The result is that third positionists taking potshots at Austrian economics is purely academic. Neither they nor the Austrians are anywhere near the levers of power. However, both can agree that the left are the enemy and that the status quo is unacceptable. To make a better world for all, politically speaking, we don't need consensus among the various factions of the right. What we need is an enemy. That enemy is the progressive left and what they stand for. As the situation continues to grow more dire, that will become abundantly clear. And despite our differences, we'll either fall in line and fight in our own ways, or else be consumed by the onslaught of an increasingly radical and draconian progressive force. This has been Mr. Patriarch. If you've enjoyed this video, the best thing you can do to help me out is subscribe if you haven't already. Like, leave me a comment, and share with somebody who you think will benefit from this material. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Patriarch out.